So here we go. One thing to remember is that we always round our final answers to 2 decimals, and that's final, right? And include units. That's also very important. You have to include units if applicable. So I guess the question will tell you whether or not there are. Right? So it says write the following as decimals and a percent. Do not round finite decimals. So finite decimals are obviously on your calculator, they end. Okay. So I will keep it very basic, but if you have a fraction like that, 3 divided by 4 is always top divided by bottom. That's a finite, right? That's 0.75 on your calculator, which, guess what? As a decimal, it's going to be 0.75. And as a percentage, we just multiply that by 100, right? If you multiply anything by 100, you get the percentage, which is 75%. I know this is not a surprise, right? A lot of you got that already. But just watch what's going to happen next, right? So when we work with that, 5 divided by 6 gives you that. That's not finite, right? It just keeps going. So on your calculator, this is what I actually want you to do in this course. You kind of write down what's on your calculator, and then you decide how are you going to state your final answer. If you want it as a decimal, we would cut it right here, correct? Oh, I should review the rounding rules. I skipped a little bit. I know you know this, right? But if there's a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, we round down, okay? If there's a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we round up. I hope you remember that, right? So if we were to cut it here, you always look at the number to the right, and this is 3, right? So this stays at 0.83. We call that rounding down. If you want to state this as a percentage, this is probably going to be somewhat new to you. I take what's on my screen and multiply it by 100, and then I round this number to 2 decimals. That's 83.33%. Okay? So 83.33% based on my calculator. Does that make sense? So some of you might be tempted to just say 83%, but this is the correct way of doing it. You go back to your calculator, and that's that. Let's do one more. 3 divided by 32. That's finite. So I write down the whole thing. 0.9375. So you guessed it, as a decimal, I won't change a thing. As a percentage, I need to multiply that by 100, right? So you go multiply that by 100, and that's 9.375%. That's how you do that. One more, 19 divided by 23. That gives me 0.82608, and that keeps going. If the question says stated to a decimal, you would round, right? You would cut it right here at 2 decimals. So you look at the neighbor, and that's a 6. It bumps that 2 to a 3, right? If the question says, hey, state this answer as a percent, you take what's on your calculator times 100, and that's 82.6. Look at my calculator, right? That 0 gets bumped to a 1 because you have an 8 next to it. So that would be 61%. I hope that makes sense. It's maybe a little different than what you're used to, but that's kind of how you're supposed to do it. Okay. Let's do one more, and then I'll move on from this section. 3/4. This is what you do, guys. 1 divided by 4, 0.25, no surprises there. And then you add the 3 in front of it. So this is really 3.25 0.25. Right? It's 3 whole units and 0.25 of a unit. So as a decimal, you guessed it, it's this. As a percentage, if you multiply that by 100, you get 325%. So the rest, I will leave that up to you. So we're going to move on. I will post the key, don't worry about it. But I just want to touch a few, then you're on your own for a bit, okay? Let's do some rounding. Not that we didn't do it so far, but rounding to the nearest 100, 2 decimal, you basically want to cut it here. And you write down 17.9. Before you write down the 8, you look at the side, there's a 4, meaning the 8 stays. And we call that rounding down because you're dropping all of this, right? You're rounding down. Here, if you did 2 decimals, you cut it right there. The 9 bumps that to a 5, right? So 0.25. These are basic rounding. Let's do a ripple effect question. I'm thinking this one here. This is what I mean with ripple effect. If you cut it there, this 6 will bump this to a 10, right? Which will in turn bump this to a 10. Which will in turn bump this to a 9. So it's actually 259.00. That's what that question would round to. So those are a little trickier. Not very common, but you got to watch out. Like as long as you bump to 10, you keep bumping the number next to it until you get to a number that doesn't get you to 10. Okay. So I'll leave the rest up to you. You round it to 2 decimals as best as you can. No big deal right now if you make a mistake. But by the time we get to the final exam, I would like there to be no rounding errors, if at all possible. Okay. Question 3. Let's go to 3. This is very important for this course. If you want to find a percentage of a number, you need to turn, right? Always turn percentage to decimals. There's very few exceptions, so I will just say always do that, and then you'll be fine. So 3% is really, if you look at that, it's really 3 over 100, correct? It's 3 divided by 100, which in turn gives you, use your calculator for this, 3 divided by 100 is 0.03. Okay, so I write that down, 0.03. And of in math means times. You're going to find 3% of 250 bucks. So let's go ahead, 0.03 times 250. That's 7.5 according to our calculator. There's 2 things wrong with that answer right now. That's one of the things that is missing. Dollar sign, yeah, okay. And one more thing, which you may not be aware of. Right, so when it's a dollar amount, guys, it has to be like this. It has to have 2 decimals. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So 750 is the right answer there. You want to do one more? Sure, let's do one more. Let's do this one here. I will jump. I will just say, let's turn that. We're just going to divide that by 100 and done deal, right? So 0.85 divided by 100 is 0.0085 times $675. So I turn that into a decimal and then and then I multiply it by 675, pardon, and that gives me 5.773 or 74. 74, right? Because this 7 bumps that 3 up to 4. Okay. I tend to circle my final answers, clearly stating like this is the answer. Right? And so the rest I'm going to leave up to you there in that section. You'll have the full on key posted shortly after. Next, question 4. What do you call this? I know you know it. Would cross, multiply, and divide ring a bell? Teachers, cross, multiply, and divide. Yeah, that's what most teachers call this. But the fancy name for this, and I want you to know this, proportional, oops, what happened there? Proportional reasoning. And it's basically saying, this is how I want you to read a proportion, right? If this is true, right? If this fraction is true, what would you have to have on the other side? What would this number have to be so that both sides are in fact equal? Okay. I don't care how you were taught this before, but this is how I do it. You find the side where the variable is. Variable is the letter. And in this case, it's on the right side, correct? You go to the number, and then you travel from there. You cross multiply, and you divide. This isn't work for me doing this. This is not showing work. This is just to help you, right? What needs to be done. This is what I want you to do. N, the letter N, the variable N will be found by going 38 times 45, right? This times that divided by 76. And then we'll figure it out. So grab your calculator. 38 times 45 divided by 76. It's 22.5. There's no dollar amount, nothing. So just leave it like that. Okay. So letter N has to be 22.5. I'll do one more. Oh, here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to do this. Like some students see this whole thing, they go click, 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 and then they go like that. It's a big no-no, right? First of all, you're not showing work, and this is not true. You're saying this is equal to this, which is equal to that. Only N is equal to that, right? So this is a no-no, right? Don't do that. Show me the work in between. Show me the final answer. It takes 15 seconds probably to write this out. Doesn't take that much. Next, where's the variable? In this case, it's on the left side. You start with the number, you cross multiply down, and then you continue your journey by dividing. Okay, so M will be found by going 3.95 times 95.7, this times this, divided by, this is how we do divided in math. We write it underneath, right, what it's supposed to divide. So here we go, 3.95 times 95.7 divided by 124.5. That's 3.04. Okay, 3.04 is your answer there. And you just practice that, and we're going to use a lot of this. Okay, so you got to just make sure you're comfortable with that kind of work. Okay, and what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to show your work. It's kind of like an essay, right? You can't just give your teacher the final paragraph of your essay, right? You got to show everything in between, right? How did you arrive there? We're good? Okay. Let's keep going backside. I will skip. All of that will be up to you. All these ones are up to you. Let's go to H real quick. H on it's the second page there. I'm not going to talk much longer. It says, here's where my highlighter comes in. It says that it takes 8.5 liters per 100 kilometers driven. We call that fuel economy. Does that ring a bell? The fuel economy of a car? Now you'll hear it again. Don't worry. But it says like determine the amount of fuel. So how much fuel would it take to drive that distance? So it's basically if this is true, right? How many liters would you need to drive a different distance, right? So this is how you set it up. 8.5 liters over 100 kilometers. That is a true fact. That's how much this car uses. And on the other side, you're only given one of those pieces. We are given what? The distance we drove, right? So we were going to put that. It's very important that you put it in the denominator, that kilometers match up. Okay? And this is going to be X number of liters that we will need to drive that distance. So that's your setup. And then, just like before, cross multiply and divide. Okay? Cross multiply and divide. So X will be 1259 times 8.5 divided by 100. Cut to the chase and give you the answer. It says, actually, why don't I do the whole thing? Doesn't hurt. That's 107.0 what? 2, right? 02. What? You just found liters, right? What does gas cost right now? $1.549, I think this morning when I checked. So if you had this many liters, you multiplied by 1.549, it would cost you $165, $66 to make that trip, right now. So depend, right? It's actually, if you ever want to travel far distances, you want to account for gas, right? This is what you do. Google Map. What is it from here to Minneapolis, right? And I need to go back and forth. So you figure out this number, like how many kilometers, and then this you can figure out by either Googling it, your make and model, right? And then we'll do this later on, trust me. So that's everything it wanted here, the liters you would need to make a trip this far. I'll skip 5 for now. I'll skip 5. Let's go to 6, and that'll be, I park it there today. I just want you, this is important to me that you're all on the same page, okay? So let's go to question 6 because every teacher does this one differently. Where it says calculate the total before and after taxes. That's going to be a very common theme in this course. PST and GST is a total of 12% that we pay in this province on most things, right? You will find out that it's not always 12%. Okay? This is what I want you. I hope you can follow this. Can you just look up for a bit? If you buy something, we would consider that 100% right now. Okay, 100%. If you then go to the till and they add 12% taxes, right? You would actually be paying 112% in total. Would that make sense if I explain it to you that way? 100% is the whatever you're buying, let's say Nintendo Switch. and then the add tax is 12%. So now actually it's 112%. 112% translates to 1.12. If you converted that to a decimal, right, we divide it by 100, that's 1.12. Circle this because it's very important. Circle that. So now watch what I'm going to do here. Jenna buys 3 pop drinks at $1.25 each, and 4 Dream Donuts $1.50 each. So let's do the subtotal. 3 times $1.25 plus. Do you guys know what I'm talking about when I say Dream Donuts? McDonald's used to have them. I don't know if they're still a thing, but maybe they weren't so good. So 3.75 plus 4 times 150. If you go 4 times 150, that's $6, right? So you need to do this separately and then add. And that gives you a total of $9.75. This would be what we call before taxes. Right? Right now it's just you just add the price, right? 3 pop drinks, 4 donuts, it breaks down to $9.75. If you want after tax, this is how I do it, and this is going to be the best way to do it. We multiply anything you buy by 1.12. So you take your $9.75, multiply it by 1.12. That's $10.92. And this is after tax. Make sure you label that properly. And the 1.12, notice that I'm not saying plus 1.12, right? Because then you'd be adding $1.12. You go times 1.12 and adds taxes. It's a quick way of adding taxes. Anything you buy, you want those new headphones. How much would I need after taxes? Just take your phone times 1.12, right? And so then you get your after taxes. So this will be before, this is after tax, right? So that's what I want here. Some of your teachers may have, they may have told you, okay, take 9.75, multiply it by 0.12, right? You'd be paying $1.17 taxes. Then we're going to add this to 9.75, right? You still get $10.92, right? So this is a quicker way of adding taxes to anything. By the way, if you're only adding PST, that's only 7%, right? That would be 1.07. You'll see down the road how I change this number according to my needs. Okay, I'm going to stop there. This is your homework, guys. Homework first day. You got to be kidding me. Actually, I would encourage you to always do a little something. Okay. I will just say homework is page 1 and 2. Mr. Dirksen, if I want to do the whole thing, can I do it? Yeah, the key is going to be completely the whole thing is done. I will only do the first 2 because that's all I need right now to get going. Okay. I'm going to start my new unit tomorrow, the vehicle finance unit. So the key is going to be online. Question? Yeah, front and back. Yeah. So that's a good question, right? Just basically the first sheet, right? Everything else, if you want to do it, go for it. But you're going to be okay if you just know how to round, cross multiply and divide, and finding taxes on things.